I've been playing the Splatoon franchise since the first game back on the Wii U. With every new entry, I often found myself longing for the previous entry. In the case of Splatoon 2, for a while I missed and preferred the original game, but this sentiment was stupid, and I eventually realized that the second game was the better of the two. Splatoon 2 was a much more balanced experience. The new weapon classes were a lot of fun, and some of my favorite maps were introduced in this game, such as Humpback Pump Track and Inkblot Art Academy. Splatoon 2 also introduced many quality of life improvements, such as being able to see all the different weapons being used in a match. Many people who haven't played the games who said that Splatoon 2 was not different enough to justify being a sequel. But with all the improvements, new game modes, and adaptation to a new console, I think these claims are unjustified. Splatoon 2 is my personal favorite game in the franchise, especially when you consider the Masterclass campaign that was included in the Octo expansion DLC. When Splatoon 3 dropped a few years back at this point, I had a very similar feelings for when I started playing Splatoon 2. I always found myself getting annoyed at small changes and other things. When the Splatfest to determine what the theme of Splatoon 3 occurred in Splatoon 2, there were two options: Chaos versus Order. I was personally on the side of Order, and after getting Splatoon 3, I could say I really wish Order had won. The DLC for Splatoon 3 has included the Order theme in its new DLC campaign, but I've yet to actually play that. The Chaos setting, aka everything is deserts or in ruins, is not visually appealing to me, but thankfully isn't present in many of the maps, and really isn't present in the hub world. This is mostly relevant to the single player campaign of 3. Speaking of the single player campaign, I've heard people say that this is one of the best in the franchise, but I can say that I didn't finish it. I would say it's about on par with the base game 2's campaign, but it doesn't compare to the Octo expansion, which has become my golden standard for Splatoon campaigns now. Again, I haven't played the campaign that was released with the DLC, but from what I've seen, it does look very interesting, and I would like to get around to playing it at some point soon. At the end of the day, however, Splatoon 3 is a multiplayer shooter, and judging the game off a single player campaign would be stupid. So how does the multiplayer stand up? With the jump from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2, the multiplayer had a pretty big overhaul. All of the previous specials were removed and overhauled to be balanced, the passive effects of gear were changed/removed, and 8 maps, 6 of which were brand new, were included in the game at launch. Splatoon 2 to 3 was a much more subtle transition. Many of the specials from Splatoon 2 returned, the gear changes were not nearly as extensive, and it launched with 12 stages, only 5 of which were new, and most of these new maps were not designed as well as previous maps. When Splatoon 2 launched, it was on a brand new system, so it encouraged players to buy the game so they would have Splatoon on the new system. Splatoon 3 launched on the same system, which meant that it needed to compete with Splatoon 2. At launch, it was very brutal going from Splatoon 2 to Splatoon 3 because of the dramatic decrease in content. Splatoon 2 had 139 weapons according to the wiki. When 3 launched, it had a fraction of that. And I think that is where my main problem with 3 and new Splatoon games stems from: the lack of content at launch. Splatoon 2 was able to keep me hooked because it was either play that or go back to the Wii U. To play the game with horrible balancing and lacking many of the quality of life improvements. When I started playing Splatoon 3, I had to force myself to play the game, which made me dislike it more and more. I didn't like the new maps, I only enjoyed the old ones, I hated the new weapon classes, and the game didn't have anything I liked more than the second. It's hard to justify playing a game when it doesn't provide meaningful new content as opposed to its predecessor. When I originally started writing this video, I was only going to talk about why I didn't like Splatoon 3 as compared to Splatoon 2, but writing this made me realize that this is a franchise-wide problem, not just a 3 problem. When Splatoon 4 launches on the next Nintendo console, it's going to have the same thing all over again. A fraction of the weapons, a fraction of the maps, and probably not significant updates to the gameplay like there was from 1 to 2. Splatoon is a franchise that oozes creativity, and each game has always come up with some incredible ideas. But with a combination of lack of content at launch and series of stagnation makes me worried about this franchise. But it could be worse. At least this isn't a series that gets a yearly release. Those franchises have all the same problems, but those games aren't around long enough to get all the fun updates like Splatoon. As of right now, Splatoon 3 has over 100 different weapons, and the map design has been significantly improved compared to when the game first launched. If Splatoon 4 can have more content at launch, more weapons at the beginning, more original maps that are actually well designed, I think we can break the cycle of the lack of content at launch that Splatoon has been known for ever since it released. There's a reason this content model has killed so many other games. Look at ARMS or the Mario sports games, all of which launched with bare minimum content at launch with promise for more later down the road. Those games just didn't stick around, people didn't play them. But somehow Splatoon has managed to stay strong, and at the end of the day, each game ends up becoming a masterclass with the amount of content that is added, mostly all for free. Splatoon 3 is a game I plan on giving another shot. Splatoon 3 may not be my favorite in the franchise, but I can't deny that it's an excellently crafted game that a lot of heart and passion went into, and I still look forward to playing it whenever the Splatfests come around.